Okay, so we got the Zoom going. All right, so I'm going to share. Good morning if you just came in. All right, so if you just joined us, we are in Canvas. Last class we looked at human impact on land, and we had several things that can happen that we do. And you were all supposed to do a short present by pick factors. And yes, I know it takes a minute. My computer is very slow, but I was just trying to keep talking while I was waiting for it. So hopefully it's not black anymore and you can see where we are. So we're in Canvas. All right, and like I was saying, we're going to look at agriculture today, but last class we were looking at land. Come on, go back. Okay, so we looked at land pollution. And again, we're looking at what human activity, what impact human activities have on all of these things. And then what we did is we took the list of different ways that we affect the land, and everybody was working on a presentation, short presentation on land pollution activities. Okay. So that's what's due today. I'll be looking at those later. If it says late, don't worry about it. It's not late today. After today, it'll be late. And so I will leave the late designation on it. But as of today, it's not late. Okay. And I did show one that was really good. Um, and we're going to move on now to agriculture. All right. So what I'm going to do is give you a few minutes to read this page on agriculture if you are just getting in and you haven't started reading it yet. Take a few minutes to read that over. I'm going to do attendance, and then I'm going to show a you have developed over time that are greatly changing. So the impact of agricultural activities, we're going to look at that, the machinery, the practices, and so on. So we're going to come back to this challenge in a little while. So while I'm doing attendance, please read over this page, and I will be back in a few. All right, so again, remember I do attendance by looking at GoGuardian. So make sure that when I look at GoGuardian, you are actually looking at your Canvas page. I got some people already idle. Folks, when you log in and then go idle, I think that's absent in my book. So I shouldn't see that you're idle. I should see, like I said, that you should be actually logged into. Canvas. So Aaron, Caleb, and Lucas, please find your way to Canvas. Otherwise, it looks like you're absent to me. All right, it looks like, uh-oh. Jaquise, are you still having issues? Right. Jaquise, have you ever reported to someone at the school that you're having connection issues? Because you are still connecting and dropping off, connecting and dropping off. Yes. All right. Aaron and Lucas still would like to see you, and Tegan would like to see you on Canvas. Looking at me. All right. So from what I can tell, we only have really one person absent. But again, folks, being logged in and then being off camera and being idle for 20 minutes is not present in class. And again, if you're idle, that means that you're not paying attention to what the instructions are. So when assignments are given, more than likely you're not going to do them. Okay, one more time. I'm going to ask you to be on camera. Then I'm going to mark you late. Because right now he's not even in class. Okay. All righty. So on this page, we've already watched the extended version of the video that's on this page. And you can find it in the, let me just get back to sharing first, so you know what I'm talking about. I've already seen the version of that one for land. So that's in the chat. So now we're going to, hopefully you've had a chance to look back and read about all of the discoveries we've had as far as agriculture is concerned. And we've come a long way from the way our ancestors took planted crops and harvested crops. And then we had what we call the Green Revolution, or the third agricultural revolution. And it mostly came about because they invented a lot of tools that made life easier. So the video that I'm going to show is looking at mostly what we have done in agriculture as far as tools and equipment are concerned, but also looking at the effect it has on the land. Everything comes back to, yeah, this is wonderful, and we're doing all these wonderful things so that people can eat and we can grow more crops, and all of that is great, but it also has an effect on the land. So that's what we always need to come back to looking at. What are we doing to the land, and are we fixing it? That was one of the questions that you had to answer, is what's the solution to this problem? So, okay, right now I can't hear anything. However, let's see why I'm not hearing anything. This is buffering. Mm, it's so cold out there. Everything is buffering this morning. Last class I ran into buffering issues. Okay, we're gonna, and why am I not hearing her talk?
And to do so, I'm going to take you through my morning
You hear her
ritual.
now?
It sounds weird, but my bowl of
Yes.
multigrain Cheerios
Like we were until it started buffering again.
and rice milk and relaxing in my super comfy pajamas are all connected to intensive agricultural practices. In particular, tilling, slash and burn farming, and fertilizers. So let's take a closer look at the Cheerios in my bowl. Most of my cereal here is actually composed of grains like oats, corn, and barley. And growing grains typically starts with tilling and good quality soil with lots of nutrients. But what is tilling? In short, tilling is the process of turning soil. And it's really useful because loosening the soil allows farmers to easily control weeds and other pests at the surface of the soil, and it helps them to prepare the soil for seeding. Sometimes, in areas that have been heavily farmed, the soil can become compacted over time. Here, tilling can help to break down the soil into smaller pieces, called soil aggregates, and allow for easier crop planting. Now, tillage has been done for thousands of years, but it's changed a lot from the past when we used human labor and big draft animals to till small fields, usually once per year. Nowadays, in the era of industrialized agriculture, large scale farmers use heavy, mechanized equipment that can till thousands of acres multiple times per year. Okay, we're growing more, so we're tilling more. A lot more. And while soil tillage can help to loosen and aerate soil, what do you think happens when heavy machinery passes over the land and tears up the surface multiple times per year? This practice of repeated intensive tilling compacts the lower layers of the soil and loosens the topsoil to the point that it loses the ability to hold water and nutrients in place. Tillage also reduces any leftover crop residue, like plant stalks, so in turn, the exposed soil surface becomes really vulnerable to wind and rain because nothing is really holding the soil down or providing cover.
All right, I paused it there because this is the important part. So when we're looking at the impact, yes, tilling is good, and we've advanced our techniques in tilling, and it helps us get more crops in an easier fashion. But what is it doing to the soil? So this is the big question. So the damage that it's doing is, because you've got these machines riding over the land all the time, it's pushing the soil down and it's getting really hard and compacted. That's underneath. The part that's up top that's loose, like she said, has nothing to hold it in place. So when we have rainstorms and wind storms, it gets blown away or washed away. So that's the good part of the soil, and it's just being blown to someplace where it's no longer useful to the farmer. So this is a bad thing. It leaves the land vulnerable, like she said. So when we say what is the impact of tilling, that's the impact of tilling.
So, what happens next? Loose soil can start to collect in surface runoff and become displaced through erosion. When this happens, soil, organic matter, and nutrients are literally washed or blown away. Who would have thought that these Cheerios were doing so much damage? But there's some good news here too. Low till or no till farming alternatives can alleviate some of these problems, thankfully. In the Palouse, a huge agricultural area in the western US where a lot of grains, just like the ones in my cereal, are grown, no till farming is really important because the fields are, well, they're really steep and hilly, and wind and rain can cause a lot of erosion when the soil is heavily tilled. By not tilling the fields, farmers can prevent soil erosion and, more importantly, from my perspective, make sure that they can grow lots of grains for my Cheerios. But wait, cereal isn't complete without milk. Now, I personally like rice milk because I'm lactose sensitive, and rice is commonly grown in temperate and tropical regions, oftentimes in areas where soil quality isn't the best and nutrients are lacking. So, how do farmers get nutrients back into the soil? And more importantly, how do they grow rice for my rice milk at breakfast? Well, they often use slash and burn farming. So, like the name, forest plots are slashed or cut, left to dry, and then burned. The ash left over from the burning fertilizes the soil, but it's only a temporary benefit. After about 3 to 5 years, the productivity of slashed and burned plots goes down really quickly due to the loss of nutrients and as weeds start to grow again. When this happens, farmers simply abandon the field, move over to a new area, and repeat the process. But it can take decades for these plots to recover once they've been slashed, burned, and farmed, and this practice can become a vicious cycle. In the Amazon, for example, people in rural areas rely on slash and burn so that they can make money selling the crops they grow or create open pastures for animals to graze. In the process, thousands of acres are burned each year, and as these trees and plants burn, enormous amounts of greenhouse gases, mainly carbon dioxide, are produced, which contribute to climate change. And sometimes, too, fires may not be well managed and can burn out of control, causing huge, costly wildfires.
Okay, so whoops, let me go back just a little bit. So we've got slash and burn as a technique. And while it's good to help us get where I want to be, we want to look at the downside. What is the downside of this wonderful technique that's going to help her get the rice for her milk? And it slash and burn by the technique, the fires release carbon dioxide. I think if you remember, we talked way back that carbon dioxide is the layer of gas around the planet that keeps us warm. So we keep burning things out of control like this, kind of like the way the fires are on the West Coast right now. It's adding a tremendous amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And I always refer to it like thickening the blanket. If you're stuffing the blanket with the stuff that makes it nice and thick and keeps us warm, that's what the carbon dioxide is doing. So the more things that you burn, the more carbon dioxide is put in the atmosphere, and it is held there. It makes our blanket around the earth thicker, and it's affecting climate change. We just had a little, you all didn't get snow, but we got snow up here, and it's still lying around. This morning I had to drop my daughter to work, and depending on which side, you can tell which side the sun was shining on in the afternoon. One side of the street still has a nice hill of snow. The other side of the street, all the snow has melted. My side of the street, the snow has melted, so I don't have that pretty snow anymore. But the other side of the street, the snow is still there. weather is weird, but climate change, we have all this precipitation on the East Coast. The West Coast, one of the reasons they have those fires is it's dry, dry, dry. They have had no precipitation since May. So it's so dry that everything, the least bit of spark sets everything on fire. Okay. So this is not a great technique because as it says, the fires can burn out of control, which is what we have going on in California right now.
But it's not all doom and gloom when it comes to my tasty rice milk. There are alternatives to slash and burn, which include applying animal fertilizer like manure on used plots to bring nutrients back to the soil, or using alley cropping, in which trees or other vegetation are planted between crops to help keep nutrients and moisture in the soil.
She called it alley cropping, but it's alternative cropping in that you do one thing one time and then you do something else the next.
To help keep nutrients and moisture in the soil. Alright, by now I've eaten my breakfast and I'm relaxing in my super comfy cotton pajamas. But turns out that cotton is actually a really finicky crop to grow and it requires a lot of fertilizers. And fertilizers help plants grow, but that's not a bad thing, right? And it's not. In fact, we've been using fertilizers for millennia. For thousands of years, people have used natural fertilizers to replenish or increase nutrients in the soil and promote plant growth. Natural fertilizers meant that farmers used things like leftover crops, manure, wood ash, ground bones, fish or fish parts, and even bird and bat poop. In the early 1800s, though, scientists discovered that nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium were key to plant growth. And in time, many farmers began to switch from natural fertilizers to artificial fertilizers with higher concentrations of these nutrients, which greatly increased crop yields. In other words, farmers could grow more, and that means more cotton and more comfy pajamas.
All right, whoops. She always talks faster than I. All right, so I wanted to pause it here. When we think about living things and natural products, living things have in their makeup carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sometimes extra phosphorus and sulfur and potassium are what we call the trace elements. And those exist naturally in certain stuff. In living things. So when she was talking about using the remains of plants and animals to fertilize, that's why they can do that, because these elements are present in the remains of living things. A lot of times when the body decays or the organism, plants decay, the carbon dioxide is leaving and the hydrogen and water evaporate, but it leaves these other nutrients behind so they can use them in the soil. But like she said, we are so clever. We want more because we're growing more crops and we want bigger and better crops. We go in the lab and we cook up a man-made version of the fertilizer. And it also probably has things in it that are not so good for us. And so then we run into the problem of what is that? What exactly are we putting in our food that is making it grow better? Is it good for us? So that's the problem we run into there with fertilizers.
More cotton and more comfy pajamas. But there's a catch. Now that farmers are growing more crops than any time in history, we've learned that there are impacts to using large amounts of very concentrated fertilizers. Applying too much fertilizer can pollute runoff water with excess fertilizer and pollute local surface waters. As nutrient-rich materials like fertilizer make their way into nearby rivers, lakes, and oceans, they can cause major problems in the balance of nutrients in marine ecosystems. When too many nutrients from fertilizers saturate a body of water, called eutrophication, these nutrients feed the rapid growth of algae. In turn, these massive algae blooms can suck up all the oxygen in bodies of water and lead to enormous fish die-offs called dead zones. Quite.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it there again. All right, you need to know this word eutrophication. So you might want to write that one down. All right, so when you see lakes that are super, super green like this, that's because it grew too much algae and there was so much fertilizer and nutrients in the lake that the algae just grew and grew and grew. Okay, that may seem like it's good because there are fish that feed on algae. However, the algae needs oxygen and they block the whole surface of the pond. So it's like they create this film that the light and oxygen don't go through because the algae are using the light and the oxygen. So that's not good for the fish underneath who are trying to get the light and the oxygen.
Quite a morbid situation, and very different from the happy unicorns in my pajamas. But there's ways to reduce the amount of fertilizers released into waterways. Farmers can limit the amount of fertilizer that they apply, or use compost, which is decomposed organic material, as a fertilizer, which tends to have lower and safer levels of nitrates and phosphates. And there you have it, common agricultural practices and their impacts in a nutshell, or really a bowl of
All
cereal.
right. One of the things I liked about this video was she is using, a lot of times you all think about what does this have to do with me and how is it related? But all of you probably get up and how many of y'all had cereal for breakfast? A bowl of cereal or something like that for breakfast. Or you had some type of farm type thing. You might have had eggs and bacon. They lived on the farm and they fed off the farm. And she related all of the agricultural things that it took to get just your morning day started. Yes, I got your message about the zero. Did you hear my answer to that? When I check them, they won't be late today. I'm gonna stop talking in a minute and check on these, but it won't be late. But you should have been worrying about this video and not worrying about that zero in the grade book. All right. So again, what I would like for you to do, if I can get this to shrink back down. My screen won't go away. I don't know why okay, there we go. Let's do it that way. There we go. I understand, and it won't be marked. I'll check on it in a minute. So coming back to the impact of agriculture. While I check on this other issue in the grade book, I would like for you all to read the page on agriculture and do the agriculture activity that they have on that page. Wednesday, I'll have a short quiz on, and my computer's frozen. But you want to get back to, I'm trying to get back to the Canvas page where yes, I'm waiting. All right, so one of two things. You are finishing up your presentation, which I'll be checking in a minute, or you are reading today's activity. My goodness. So hopefully you're not having the same issue I'm having. All right, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute because it's not doing any good. Sometimes when I share, that does funny things to my computer. What are we doing? We are looking at the page on agriculture. There is a matching activity there that you should be doing. And I appreciate if you work on that while. Okay, well, hold on. I may need to reboot my computer, so you all don't go away. Just stay logged in because this is just spinning round and round and round. So if I leave, don't you leave. You stay right where you are. And if you've completed that, the next unit is also already published. You can read that as well. The effect of humans on soil. That's where we're headed next. But give a good read. Don't give it a casual read. Like I said, well, I'm going to do a quiz. So read it like you're studying for a quiz for Wednesday on land and agriculture. All right, so I'm going to reboot my computer. You all stay logged in and stay doing what you're supposed to be doing, and I'll be right back. All right, thanks for staying. Most of you are still there. I don't know what's going on with my computer. Hopefully nothing drastic. Okay. So again, what you should be working on, a couple of things. If you have not turned in your land pollution assignments, you need to do that. I'll check on that in a minute. You are going to do the activity, the matching activity for agriculture. And if you finished all of that, go ahead and read soil, because as you see, this is a short unit. So we are just about finished with this unit right after soil. So if you are satisfied with those, your work in those two areas, go ahead and look at the next one that is already published for soil. Again, on Wednesday, I'm going to have a short quiz on both land and agriculture. Make sure that you can answer the questions at the bottom that say before you go, you need to know. Okay, and go back to the land and make sure, because that's how I make the quiz. Before you need to know. So what is it that you need to know? Okay. All right, so while you're doing that, I will check on the grade book to see what's going on there. Okay. And Jacquees, the only reason it said 0 was because I hadn't looked at it yet. I looked at some on Friday, but I had not looked at yours yet. That's why the 0 was there. And I'll say this. The grade book automatically, once the due date approaches, the grade book automatically puts zeros in. So it's up to me to take the 0 out if it's not actually late. And that's what I do. So everybody needs to know that. Do not panic. You submitted, or it just means I haven't checked it yet. When I was checking, yours wasn't there. So, do not worry about that. But after today, it is late. Okay, good job. And there are a few like that. So they're not late. I just hadn't checked it. It wasn't in when I was checking. But if it's not in today, it's definitely going to be late. I'll grade it and it'll take on the late. And again, the grade book puts its own penalty and it takes off a fraction of a point for each day that it's late. So we're not trying to have late assignments this year. We're trying to do everything on time.
But my main focus was, I was saying this is still my for the apartment, because if him and Ken ain't gonna be there, and we get on the rules and regulations of how this got to look, and put some kids stuff over there.
You have a question?
Yeah, I don't mind them staying over there, but all that partying and shit, they not doing that.
No, you missed.
Say what now?
I guarantee that he ain't thinking like that. The point of what I was looking at was an income thing.
You have a question for me?
pay that light bill. I only gonna they gonna pay them bills in terms of what need to be paid or whatever.
Yeah,
I
I understand that part, but you got to be looking at that more than just income. You got to be seeing what type of company they keep, the shit that they do. Like you got to be looking at that shit too.
Jaquees, you need to mute your computer.
Notify them.
Never mind, I muted it. Okay. All right. All right, Neve, I'm looking at yours. You didn't follow directions, but I'm going to grade it as is. You were supposed to pick one topic. Also, you were supposed to include pictures. Okay. Oh no. Okay. Um, I can do that. I just graded it as is, though. But I'll go back and reassign it. All right, so is Jalen here? All right, again, folks, we're not trying to be late. I do have a couple of people whose assignments are missing. And after today, it's late. And you do have, and the other thing I want to say is that you do have class time to do this. So if you're not doing it in class time, then I question, what is it that you are doing with your class time that you can't get this done during class? That particular assignment was quite short. You were definitely able to get that done during class. So I shouldn't have missing assignments. There shouldn't be late assignments. Yet I do, for people who are present. All right. So Neve, I will do that. I will reassign it. And get back to it. Okay, it's been reassigned. Okay. All right, so everybody who had a 0 no longer has a 0, everything. So after today, if it's a 0, it's going to be a 0. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros. Everybody else, good job. Good job. Okay, so again, Wednesday. We are going to and I'm going to have questions from the video because some of y'all don't watch the video, didn't pay any attention, even though I pointed some things out from the video. You were doing other things while the video was playing. So, okay. Okay. And if you noticed the same picture that's on your Canvas screen about back in the day was also the one in the video. Those of you who are paying attention. All right, so make sure that you are able to, and I don't need to go through that section of the challenge activity with you because you can check your answers. If you didn't get it all right, hopefully you went back and did it again. But you do need to know the correct answer for all of these terms. And you need to be able to define what is agriculture. What do we mean by the Green Revolution? Okay, high crop yields, irrigation, agricultural machinery, which was basically what was being shown in the video. Too much pesticides and fertilizers. What are some of the natural things that she talked about in the video? So the presentation was similar to the one that you just did on the land, that she also said, well, this is a problem, but this is how we can cut back on the problem. All right, and again, that video is in the playlist, so if you need to see it again. All right, so let's look at soil erosion. Since we have a few minutes, let's look at that.
Dirt. It gets everywhere, it covers everything, and it's, well, dirty. But dirt is just misplaced soil. And soil is the last thing we want to get rid of.
Earth wouldn't be Earth without soil. It's an aptly named planet. We're completely dependent on it. And I think that sometimes people forget about the importance of soil. It's just this brown thing that you step on and makes your shoes dirty, and that's about it. But without soil, we would not have life on Earth, and it's that simple.
So simple that we often forget about the incredible things soil provides, like the planet's food. Carnivore, herbivore, or omnivore, soil grows or feeds our options, whatever box you check. Soil also provides the plant and animal fibers we use every day, from cotton to construction materials to leather. And on a more basic level, almost every step you take, whether it's in the bathroom, on the ball field, or on a bridge, soil supports you.
Soil is the skin of the Earth. It's the living skin of the Earth. Some of the things soil does, we just sort of take for granted, like decomposition. It's a process that just happens. Things just rot. Well, that's actually not a passive process. It's an active process. It's happening in the soil, and it's taking place through the effort of millions and millions of species.
In every spoonful of soil, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of microbes actively working. Although invisible to the naked eye, we can appreciate their microscopic world through their work.
Much of the biodiversity that we see on the macro scale, mammals and birds and reptiles, things that we can easily recognize, much of it is actually dependent on microorganisms that are living in the soil. There are very, very, very small food webs that start with bacteria, and the bacteria is eaten by an amoeba. An amoeba is eaten by a nematode worm. Nematode worm is eaten by a springtail. Springtail is eaten by a millipede. Millipede can be eaten by a bird. Suddenly, we're into the macro scale.
Which includes us. Yet it's these hard-working microorganisms that help soil with its other crucial tasks, like filtering and holding our water, cleaning our air by absorbing gases, recycling nutrients through decomposition so living things can use them over and over again. So basically keeping the world going.
Human civilization is actually tied up with the health of the soil. So for example, in places where there's been too much plowing and overuse of the soil or dumping of pollutants, that can degrade the health of the soil, and that can have big consequences for people.
The Dust Bowl of the 1930s. Decades of overplowing and other poor farming practices exposed too much soil. Common windstorms in the Midwest quickly became dust storms so severe that millions of acres of fertile soil were lost and hundreds of thousands of people were forced to move.
In many cases, the farmland that we are using is from remnant soils that took millennia to develop. Soil is so complex on such a fine scale that it would be nearly impossible in order to make soil from scratch in a lab. You just couldn't do it.
So what can we do to help soil be its best?
It is very, very difficult to get soils back once you've lost it. So it's best to start from the beginning and prevent the soils from degrading in the first place. Setting aside protected areas is one way to protect soil. You can also protect the value that soil provides in farmland by having good farm practices.
Not a farmer? Don't worry. You can still get your hands on some soil. Whether you're making sandcastles or digging for earthworms, you're playing with soil.
It's a lot of fun to play in the dirt. There are a lot of people that like to do pottery. That's clay, and clay is soil. There's a lot of cool things about soil. Soils are this incredible living blanket over the surface of the earth that provides so many of the important values that we get from nature. It's just a fundamental part of life on earth.
Best of all, nature does it free of charge. So free it's dirt cheap. Nature works hard, and that's why we work hard for nature.
Okay. All right. So one of the things she kept referring to it as a living blanket. You need to remember we would starve without the soil. So the soil is important. The contents of the soil is important. Decomposition, we talk about life cycles and things, but we have to remember that all living things die. Most living things die and deteriorate into the soil, so they return nutrients back to the soil, and then things can grow. If they don't do that, then land becomes useless. And so one of the things, again, when you're looking at soil, is to make sure that if all these practices that we do that degrade the soil, actually said it's hard to get it back once it's been destroyed. We have to always remember that whatever mess that we're doing with the soil, we've got to go look at trying to get it back. All right, we need to know the soil horizon. So I'm going to, Wednesday after the quiz, I'm going to have an activity where we look at the soil horizons and know what's in each soil, what's in each layer of the soil. So you need to know this. Okay, so it's divided, the top, very, very top part, the top soil, that's where everything is growing, and that's where all the nutrients are growing. But notice that the roots go down further. So when it goes down further, that's important too. The part that is kind of useless is this sea level down here, because that's just rock. So nothing's going on down there. But the A horizon and the B horizon, those are important. So we have, if you're growing crops or raising cattle, because they need to eat the grass and have fertile lands to feed off of, then you have to maintain your A and B horizons. When they get destroyed, to the part where we're talking about soil erosion, where it's so dry and brittle that it can be blown away easily, washed away easily, and all you're left with is your C horizon, then it becomes useless. Okay, it's not going to be producing food for us. It's not going to produce food for cattle. And so everybody is starving. Okay, so again, we're talking about soil erosion. What happens when it washes away or is blown away by wind, because the land becomes devoid of all of the living things that are in that soil layer, constantly turning it over, creating nutrients so things can grow. All right, so again, if you haven't done so already, we got 5 minutes left. Make sure that you click on these and read each of these boxes. And have a clear understanding of, again, what is the activity and how is it, what does it have to do with the topic? What is it and what does it have to do? And then how can we fix it? Because this is all about the human impact. So what is our human impact on the soil? So we'll get to looking at that. So hopefully everybody's gotten this far and you're actually reading this. So I'm going to ask questions about what you read. Okay. And then we'll look at this one, these two next class. Okay, so everybody should at least be this far and have read these 3 boxes by the end of class. And if you have not, like I said, I have 6 people who still have zeros, and those are going to be late on the assignments. So if they're not in by the end of lunchtime, that's late. And from what I was looking at, you're going to lose 1/4 of a point if it's perfect. So instead of 8, it's going to be like 7.6 or something like that. Don't give away your grade just because you chose to do something other than what you were supposed to do during class.